All right. Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us, either by phone or by live stream here tonight, for the first of 5 community input sessions regarding establishing new Sioux Falls School District boundaries for the 21-22 school year. As you know, we passed a $190 million bond issue in September of 2018. Some ways that seems like a long time ago, and in other ways that just seems like yesterday to me. As a result of the Sioux Falls community providing an overwhelming show of financial support, we now must make sure that we're using those resources in the best way possible, and in the best way that serves our city. For this exercise...
Hi, this is Patrice Meyer.
Yeah. Hi, this is Megan Stever.
I'm getting feedback from more than one person.
Diane, we're getting that feedback here at IPC.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear other people.
We can hear your callers. There we go.
Schumacher? Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know what happened there, but your volume went way down and they don't even hear you. They're just talking.
Okay, we're good to go?
Yeah, I'm ready when you are.
Okay. Well, I think we're probably already started. So for those of you watching, thanks for working through some of the snags with us. For this exercise, the resource that I was talking about earlier is our bill. So it's time to begin that process again, and we'll work these kinks out as we go. Well, this certainly isn't the way we intended to hold the community engagement sessions on this important topic. However, if you remember the day that we were supposed to hold our first in-person meeting at Memorial Middle School, that was the day that we canceled all non-essential activities in the Sioux Falls School District. The following day, we were encouraged to close schools to prevent the spread of COVID-19, the coronavirus. And as you know, we have been in remote learning environment ever since. As we thought through the goal, we realized the point is to hear from the public. While we would enjoy seeing you all in person, your ability to be heard is still our main goal. And this listening methodology still helps us accomplish that goal. This topic is truly important to us, and we know it is important to the families in the city of Sioux Falls as well. That's why we're moving ahead with these input sessions. Over the past months, we have continued to receive community feedback via the Let's Talk application. I know we have received in excess of 300 pieces of information through that one tool. It didn't sound like I was on anymore. Okay, we think we're either okay or we're fixed if we weren't okay. So I'll get back to really where we are right now, and that is we're at a point where we're confident that we're still on track to allow the school board to formally adopt new boundaries in June of this year. I remind you that those boundaries will not go into effect until the fall of 21-22 school year. We believe that the Board of Education will have time to go through the community engagement meetings, another task force meeting, a work session of the Board of Education prior to having to make a decision on June 22nd. So let's go through the dates of our future meetings for community input. They are this coming Saturday at 10 a.m., Monday night, May 11th, next Monday night at 6 p.m., Thursday, May 14th at noon, and Monday, May 18th, 2 weeks from tonight at 7 p.m. We've tried to mix up those days and those times to help accommodate those folks in our community who have different work schedules and different opportunities to provide their input. With me here tonight is Todd Veek from our finance office. Todd is very instrumental in our transportation department in case we have issues that come up regarding transportation. Doug Morrison. Doug Morrison has been very instrumental in this process and probably has more knowledge of how the boundaries are currently drawn than any of us in the room. Dr. Jamie Nold, our Assistant Superintendent in charge of Administrative Services, is with us. His chief role in this issue is to understand what open enrollment looks like. So as we get questions regarding open enrollment, Dr. Nold will be able to be here and help us navigate those issues. And Dr. Teresa Boyson, our Assistant Superintendent in charge of Academic Achievement, is here to help us through any questions we might have from a curriculum services standpoint. So now, before we get into this, just a few housekeeping items before we start taking questions. Number one, in order to accommodate all questions and callers, we ask that you call in and ask your question one time during the course of our meetings. We want to give everybody a chance to be heard during this process. So you're welcome to listen, certainly, to all of the meetings, but please, one call so we can cover the largest number of topics and hear from the largest number of citizens who want to speak. Number two, make your questions or comments as succinct as possible so that we can get through the largest number of callers. In order to get through as many questions as possible, we're hoping to keep each question and answer to approximately 3 minutes. That will allow us to hear from about 20 people in an hour. Number three, if someone has already asked your question and made the same point you hoped to make, please remove yourself from the call queue so we can move on to another topic. Number four, throughout this process, we've had the Let's Talk tool that you heard me talk about earlier. That tool is available on our website. Submitting questions and comments via Let's Talk equates to the same level of input as asking your question here live tonight. The Board of Education will receive all of those comments just as they will hear the comments that you make here tonight. If you're not aware of the Let's Talk tool, you can find it on the district website. That is sf.k12.sd.us. There is a blue flag on the right side of the screen. Simply click the vertical flag and select your topic and write your question or comment. You will receive a follow-up email so that you know your question was received. Finally, please keep your comments professional. I can assure you that no one intends to create a hardship for your family. Our primary goal is to assign students to schools in a manner that maintains a focus on the priorities set by the Board of Education. Priorities such as student safety, financial considerations, using natural boundaries wherever possible, and keeping contiguous neighborhoods together wherever possible. The number to call is on your screen. If you can't see it, it is 1-800-874-4559. 1-800-874-4559. Participants, you will be asked for a code. That code is Ben Schumacher. Again, the code is Ben Schumacher. You will answer a series of questions like your first and last name, where your children attend school, etc., and the operator will place you on hold so that you can listen to other callers and then let you know when it is your turn to ask your question. Finally, and I think I said finally before, so this time really finally, we're showing two options on the website for you to consider for both Ben Rifle Middle School and Thomas Jefferson High School. We're asking for your feedback on those options. I think it is important for everyone to realize that we've considered many other options as well. And we've looked at other configurations from these options. Also, we'll continue to look for the best option available. I truly believe that what you see as our current options will be massaged throughout this process and prior to any board approval. These are your schools, and we want to hear from you on how best to put the boundaries together. So, let's get started. Diane is our operator and here with us this evening. And Diane, we're ready for questions.
If anyone would like to ask a question or make a comment, please press star and then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. Star 1 to ask a question. To remove your question, press the pound key. The first question comes from the line of Michael Johnson. Go ahead, please.
If we're not in the boundaries, so we'll be open enrolling, and we've been accepted to go to Lincoln. He'll be a freshman this year. Will he be able to continue his senior year at Lincoln through Lincoln his senior year if this goes through?
In 6 feet. Let me talk just a minute here. Michael, it's a great question. I will turn the question over to Dr. Nold as he understands our open enrollment processes as well as anybody here in the office. But I will tell you that our open enrollment as a general rule will continue in the Sioux Falls School District. So folks from outside the district who want to open enroll in, that will still be an option for you. And folks who are internal in the district and want to go to another building, those options will still be available to you as well. Now we have capacity requirements that I'm sure Dr. Nold will look at that will play into specific questions. But the open enrollment issue is a significant issue, and I thank you for that first question. I'll turn it over to Dr. Nold.
Thank you for that question. To answer that question, if your child would currently be on an open enrollment to Lincoln High School, they would complete that open enrollment to Lincoln High School. If they're currently living within the boundaries of Lincoln High School and attend there and are asking to open enroll, then they would have to apply for that open enrollment at that time, and it'd be considered on a space available basis. There'll be numbers that are established by the school board as maximum capacity numbers for both the school, the individual grade that your child would be in, and for some specific programming. So if your child is currently open enrolled to the school at the start of the new boundaries, they would complete that open enrollment process for that school. If they're going to another school, in other words, they started at a Memorial Middle School or any middle school, and they were hoping to go on to another school, they would have to apply for that new school. It would only apply to the current school that they're in.
Michael, did we get your question answered? Diane, I think we're ready for the next question.
The next question comes from the line of Sarah Keene. Go ahead, please.
Hi, this is Sarah Keene. I have 4 children in the district. I have all 4 are in Spanish immersion, and I have 2 at Edison and 1 that will be going to New Tech next year. My question is that, or my comment is that option A splits the Spanish immersion and the honors programs into 2 different schools rather than keeping them together. And when we started the Spanish immersion and it moved into Edison and moved into middle school, we got a commitment from the school district at that point that we'd have this symbiotic relationship between the 2 programs so that kids that qualify for honors but cannot move to honors, they can't go to the Challenge Center, they can't go to the honors program because doing so would mean they drop out of Spanish. Those children would have access to the honors programming at Edison because they'd be in the same building. So many Spanish immersion kids take advantage of that right now. They also share specialized busing. So the honors and the Spanish kids are on the same buses going over to Edison. Splitting them would mean that programming such as biology in 8th grade and geometry in 8th grade would not be available to the Spanish kids. So I just want to make sure that everybody on the task force and the board is aware of the repercussions of splitting those programs, and that would affect many families. And I know that there would be kids that are on track right now for math that would be left with no math class to take in 8th grade.
Yeah, Sarah, that's a really good point, and one that probably is lost on most people. But there is and you said it very well, a symbiotic relationship between our honors program at Edison Middle School and our Spanish immersion program at Edison Middle School. And I think the comment was, be very cautious if you would split those, because there are ramifications of splitting those programs. Your point is very well taken. Okay.
Thank you.
You bet.
The next question or comment comes from the line of Sarah Hill. Go ahead, please. Susan Hill. Sorry, Susan Hill.
Yes, hello. I have a daughter who is going to be a senior at Roosevelt in the fall of 2021. Will she be allowed to continue her senior year there, even if our address doesn't fall in the Roosevelt School District?
Susan, let me make sure I understand your situation. Your daughter will be a senior this fall?
No, in the fall of 2021, when the boundaries, when the new school opens.
So for in the fall of 21, your daughter will be a senior at Roosevelt.
Unless our address falls in the Thomas Jefferson School District.
Yeah, I understand. So you've got a dilemma that not everybody would have. Your dilemma is that your daughter will be a senior that year, correct? If I'm hearing your question correctly.
That's correct, and we would like her to finish at the high school that she started at.
So one of the things that our Board of Education is considering, or will consider, is will we grandfather students? While I'm not in a position to say yes or no, I know that's a topic that they're weighing heavily on. Who do we grandfather, if we grandfather anybody? If you are going to be a senior in that first year, will you have to switch schools if your address is in a school other than the one that you have attended? We don't have that answer for you tonight, but I know that will be answered by June 22nd. And I know that the Board of Education is wrestling with many questions, many details that go into with redoing boundaries. One of the questions is, what kids, if any, are grandfathered? So for example, if you're going to be a senior, do you get to finish school there? If you're going to be a junior or a senior, do you get to finish school there? And then the question is, how far down do we take that? I know we've also had at least some rhetorical questions on that same topic at the middle school level. What if you're going to be an 8th grader? Do you get to finish? Etc. So those are great questions. I cannot answer your question yes or no tonight, but I would tell you that the fact that your daughter is going to be a senior will give her a greater opportunity to be grandfathered than if your daughter was going to be a sophomore. I say that with some certainty.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The next question or comment comes from the line of Phil Tagg. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I was just curious if there have been some different options looked at. I know in other states, when launching a new high school, we've talked with people from other states like Nebraska and stuff, where the new school will launch with only programming, say, for freshmen and sophomores, so if those juniors and seniors don't have to make that choice to have to switch schools or deal with any of that. They just literally launched the school with 2 years or with 3 years of students instead of the full 4 years, and then add those students over a 3-year process. Has anything like that been considered so that students aren't put in this bad situation?
Yeah, we talked a lot at what should the programming look like in the new school. We did that both internally, and we did that with our task force, who has met 3 times. While I don't recall everything that was said, a couple of things I know that became very important were there's got to be a certain level of students, a certain number of students to be able to have the programming available at the new schools or at the redistribution in all of the schools. And one of the other things is we're also folding in New Tech High School, which is a 9-12 high school already, into Thomas Jefferson High School. So when we looked at all of the things considered, including having kids available for the numerous activities that will be on the agenda from day one at Thomas Jefferson High School, it was determined that we would open it as a 9-12 building. Having spent 30-some years in Nebraska before I moved here, I can tell you that I talked to the administration at both Millard and the Lincoln Public Schools, who have done this both ways and tried to go through the nuances of both of those topics. And I don't know that there's a clear-cut answer as to which one is best, but given the circumstance that we have, we've determined the best way for us to open is to open Thomas Jefferson High School as a 9-12 building.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Cindy Johnson has the next question or comment.
Okay, thank you. I'm just calling. My children were moved when Rosa Park opened up, and they were moved to Rosa Parks. And I live in a small neighborhood off of between 10th and 6th Street. And now it looks like that our same little neighborhood is going to have to go to Whittier when the majority of the kids out of Rosa Parks are either going to go to the new middle school or back to Patrick Henry. And I just think it's difficult when you have children that have a 6-year friendship group out of elementary school, and then you're sticking them into that teenage years in middle school, and they have to form new groups of friends during that time period, and then move back into the high school where they probably will be with their elementary school friends again. I don't understand why a group of 20 to 25 students has to go to a completely different middle school than what the majority of an elementary school is going to be going to.
Yeah, it's a good question. And one of the things that we really tried to do were to keep our elementaries moving from one spot to another so that neighborhoods stayed together to try to eliminate the very issue that you're describing. We haven't been able to do that in every instance, and maybe more specific to that issue, I would ask either Todd Beek or Doug Morrison, maybe Doug Morrison, to come up and try to explain that.
Good evening. That's a great question, and we're certainly aware of that area. It's Rosa Parks right now. There's is kind of in 3 different places, and so we know that there's that nub that sits up near Annie Sullivan, and so when it comes to the school board, we are going to probably consider a minor boundary change for that. But we're certainly aware of that, and we're looking at that. As you said, our preference would be to try to keep elementary schools together as much as possible into middle schools in their entirety. So we are looking at that space, definitely.
Okay, because I do know it was difficult for my children then to move to a different middle school at that time. Also, there was only about 4 kids that moved over.
I understand. Thank you. Hopefully,
thank you.
Hopefully, we put a little logic to that and minimize those transitions for your kids.
Melissa Stiles has the next question or comment.
Sorry, I do have a couple questions. So my daughter will be starting middle school next year. She will be a sixth grader. So if the boundaries do get passed, so she'll start Memorial for sixth grade, and then she'll have to be transferred to Edison. Is that correct? Or can she finish the 2 years off at Memorial and then just go to Roosevelt?
I don't know your daughter's specific situation, but if she will be a sixth grader next year and you will live in a different attendance area, likely she would move for her seventh grade year. I don't know which middle school that would be.
It would be, so next year she would go to Memorial, but then if the boundaries pass, we live on 57th and Marion, so then she would go to Edison for seventh grade and learn a whole new school with none of her friends, and that anxiety, you know how it is, going to a whole new school and learning middle school is a whole different level. So for her to get used to Memorial sixth grade and then have to switch to a whole different school for seventh grade, I'm just really nervous for these kids to do that. And then the other question I have as well is, if the boundaries do pass, are they going to provide transportation to Edison versus Memorial?
I think we can answer that for you.
Is your daughter at JFK right now? Or
Yeah, she's a fifth grader at
Right.
JFK right now.
so as we've talked about, there's 4 elementary schools today that feed Memorial, and Memorial is a school that we have to essentially make smaller. So we have a couple different options to do that. The Discovery area is in sort of the walk area, so we wouldn't do anything with that. Pettigrew is another area that we would probably keep whole. So in the two options, we have JFK, where your daughter is, going over to Edison. But we've tried to keep that school together. So it would be all the kids at JFK going to Edison. So hopefully that would allow your daughter to stay with her cohort, because they would be moving to Edison. And the other option, we have part of Oscar Howe going up to McGovern. So again, it's all to try to alleviate the significant population at Memorial. So hopefully having the JFK stay all together would help alleviate some of your concerns about your daughter and staying with their cohort. Yes, it would be changing middle schools, but it would be changing with that whole cohort of kids.
Okay, so she was planning to take the bus to Memorial. Is there going to be transportation to Edison from where
Yes.
JFK kids?
Yes, definitely. If it's unless the way we kind of look at it today is if you're in a walk area today, you're probably going to stay in a walk area. The one that we haven't defined yet is Ben Rifle. And if you're in a bus area like JFK is today, then you will be, instead of bus to Memorial, you would be bus to JFK. Or Edison.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We have a question or comment from the line of Patrice Meyer.
Hello. I have questions in a couple of areas, one of which has been partly addressed, and that has to do with grandfathering students who've already started. I have a student who's completing ninth grade along with some AP courses. She would be a junior at Roosevelt at the time that boundaries would change. My concern is that each school in the district currently offers distinct programs, both in terms of their coursework and in terms of some of their other programs like fine arts. And I am wondering, would she be considered stay at Roosevelt under the 4-year curriculum plan that she began developing in 8th grade and has continued to develop this year? That's my first question. My other questions have to do with driving distances and bus and travel routes, particularly for high school. Of the 7 busiest intersections in Sioux Falls with those with the most crashes and fatalities, 5 of them are on the route to one of the new to when the boundaries change. And I wonder how that concern is being addressed, being that we have so many young 14 and 15-year-old children who are driving. And then my final comment is, again, about keeping kids together with their cohorts. And in this case, it would concern Memorial students moving some to a new school and some to Roosevelt. And in the case of where the boundaries are outlined now, one of the plans would say that if you live north of 22nd Street, which is literally across the street from Memorial, you would not be attending that middle school. And that just does not make sense to me. For my own student, she currently travels about 1.5 miles. She would need to be traveling more than twice that distance, although we can't determine that because we don't have a street address for Jefferson High School.
Okay, well, let me address your first one, your curriculum plan. I would tell you that the curriculum plan that your daughter is on right now and it was developed in 8th grade, as you mentioned, is something that I would believe she can continue on regardless of the high school that she goes to. You mentioned that we have various activities from high school to high school. And by and large, now this isn't absolute, but by and large, we offer the same activities from high school to high school. I know we've got a little bit of a show choir change or difference there from one of our high schools. But from a curriculum standpoint and from an activity standpoint, if you can do it at one high school, you are almost for sure to be able to do it at another high school. And Thomas Jefferson will have that full complement of curriculum work as well as activities. So from a curriculum standpoint, we'll be able to keep her on that curriculum plan. I'm trying to make sure I understand the rest of your question, and I'm not sure if it might have been more of a comment than a question, that the 22nd Street hard line didn't make sense to you, and the issue of transportation and students driving through busy intersections is a concern.
Right, those are 2 separate questions,
okay.
or 2 separate concerns.
Let me address the first one on kids driving through intersections. While it may not be the same kids, we're going to have kids driving through those intersections to go to school. And what are we doing about that? We work closely with Sioux Falls law enforcement. We work closely with the city of Sioux Falls on a variety of topics. That still doesn't erase the worry that you have and that I share with 14 and 15 and 16 and 17 and 18-year-old drivers, without a doubt. But my point to you would be, we're going to have a number of students driving through those intersections, regardless of what the boundaries look like. So we'll continue to work with the city to mitigate those safety issues as best we can. In regard to the 22nd Street boundary, I'll turn that question over to Doug Morrison.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, on the 22nd boundary, in high school option A, we tried to keep the line the same as what Discovery is, the elementary today, and that's sort of how that was crafted. And so we realized in option A that Memorial is split, and one of the reasons is because if you look at where Thomas Jefferson is, we have to pull kids up from the current Roosevelt area to fill that high school up. Because if you look out to the Northeast, there's virtually no kids out there. There's the airport. If you look to the southeast, you come into the country club areas where the golf courses are, and so there's just not a lot of kids there. So we have to pull up from the current Memorial and Roosevelt area. Now, we did hear concerns about, like you said, where that line is drawn, and so in option C, we moved that line up to 26th Street to try to alleviate some of that. It's just that it's going to be very hard to go further north than that because essentially there will be no kids to pull from to go to Thomas Jefferson. So we did hear the feedback that you're talking about from the task force and from the Let's Talk application and that feedback, and that's why we did move that border across 26th Street to hopefully alleviate some of what you're talking about there. So again, appreciate the feedback, and it's something that we've heard from quite a few people regarding.
Thank you for your response.
You bet. Thank you for calling.
We do have one more question or comment in queue, and I'd like to remind everyone if they'd like to ask a question or make a comment, they may press star 1 on their telephone keypad. Samantha Westcott has the next question. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hello. My name is Samantha Westcott. First of all, I just really want to thank everyone who has worked so hard on this boundary project. I understand that it is not an easy job and that you guys cannot please everyone, and I appreciate all your hard work. I just want to echo
Samantha, thank you so much.
Yeah, I know it can't be an easy job.
I appreciate it.
And I want to echo some of the comments that Sarah Keene commented earlier. I have 3 kids in the school district. One is a 6th grader in Spanish immersion at Edison currently, and she also is utilizing accelerated classes that the honors program provides. So 3 of her classes are currently, 3 of her core classes are all in Spanish, and then 2 of her core classes are in the accelerated program with the honors students. And a lot of Spanish immersion kids decide not to drop out of Spanish to join the honors program. Instead, they just are utilizing the same classes the honors program kids are taking. So that's my 6th grader. My 4th grader is currently at JFK on the wait list for the Challenge Center, but they don't have a spot for him. So but he will qualify for the honors program, which is, also currently at Edison. If option A is chosen and these programs are split, like Sarah Keene said, there's a couple concerns there. My biggest concern is my 6th grader going into 8th grade would no longer have access to these accelerated or honors classes that a lot of students currently, get to because of that relationship, that mutually beneficial relationship these programs have. But specifically, a lot of these 8th grade students that are in accelerated math now would not have a math class to take in 8th grade if that honors program leaves. And so my first question is, how would you address that? The handfuls of students that are coming up that are already in 6th grade, or the 5th graders at Sonia that are already in advanced classes who are slated to also be in advanced classes who would no longer have honors classes that they can take for math, specifically as an 8th grader. And secondly, how will you guys solve the busing issue that this split would create? What will be done for that? Lastly, is there any way to keep these programs together, regardless of if both programs are moved to Patrick Henry or if they both stay at Edison? Is there any way to keep these 2 programs together since they are so mutually beneficial for each other?
Well, Samantha, really well thought out questions. And while that took a little while for you to answer, I don't know if you could have made that any more succinct. So I appreciate
Thank you.
Let me start with the third one. Is there any way to keep those programs together? The answer is yes. Now, I don't know for sure that they will be kept together, so I don't want to make a promise that I can't keep. But there are certainly ways to keep those programs together. And I would echo what you said and what Sarah either said or implied, that those programs are mutually beneficial, without a doubt. We've created an incredibly good situation, and I promise you, we wouldn't split that apart on a whim. We just wouldn't do that. We recognize how important those two programs are individually, and we recognize how important they are to one another as they've grown together. So that's my long-winded answer to your third question. The answers to your first and second question, Samantha, I'm not sure I remember them specifically, the questions.
Okay, I can repeat that. There are a lot of sixth graders currently in the Spanish immersion program who are in, they can't fully join the honors program, but they can take accelerated classes basically. So my sixth grader is in accelerated math, accelerated English language arts.
Yep.
My primary concern is starting in 8th grade, there will no longer be a math option for some of these accelerated kids who are already in accelerated math now. Come 8th grade, 2021, when this starts, there won't be a math class for them to take at Edison if honors moves, in addition to biology, like Sarah had commented. So that's my primary concern, just with them taking so many core classes, what will be done about basically the math is the biggest thing that I worry about them missing with the honors program not there. And then secondly, the busing. I just worry about, since the program shares specialized busing, how will that issue be dealt with?
Let me address the curriculum piece first, and then I'll ask the busing to go over here.
Okay.
The curriculum piece, I really think we can work that out. I don't know specifically what it's going to look like today, because one of the things we're saying is we don't want programming to get too intertwined with the idea of redrawing the boundaries. I say that, and I want you to know I understand directly how critical those programs are and their need to be together. So we'll do our best to keep those together. I'm looking at Dr. Boyson for affirmation on what I'm saying, and she's saying yes. So I really think we can make that happen. I just can't promise it to you today. It would be disingenuous for me to promise that to you. But your point, Sarah's point before you, has not fallen on deaf ears. I know it's crucial. I know, as Sarah put, the symbiotic relationship that exists, and it is something that it is our desire to keep together. So that would be my biggest, or my best response to that piece. On the transportation, I'll move it over to Doug Morrison.
I just want to make a comment on the reason that we have it split in one option is that the cohort is getting so large between the two that it's roughly over 500 kids today, and with the programs growing, the cohort becomes bigger. And so if you think about 1,000 or 900 person elementary or middle school, you're almost getting to the point where you would have to take one of the middle schools offline to create a specialty school, and then you would have neighborhood school kids that wouldn't be able to attend their neighborhood middle school. And so that's some of the reasoning behind, in one scenario, why they're separated. Certainly the programming we would have to figure out so that we're not taking away programming. If we might have to offer it in two places. I don't know, that's discussion with the school board. But that's kind of, just so you know how big the cohort is, and one of the reasons that we did create a second option for that, so that we could still have each middle school have their immediate population attending those middle schools and not having them bust across town. But I'll let Business Manager V cover the busing piece a little bit here.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. As you know, I'm sure, currently we have fee-based busing at the elementary school, and we have it at the middle school level. At the middle school level, kids get a bus from all over the city. We utilize 3 buses, and they end up at Edison. But of course, at the elementary level, the fee-based busing is available at Eugene Field. It's available at Sonia Sotomayor, and it's also available at the Challenge Center at Robert Frost. So what we do there is we also have 3 buses, and it's kind of like what you think of a hub and spoke at an airport, where the three buses converge at one place. Right now it's at Sonia Sotomayor. Kids get off. Some kids just get off and stay at Sonia Sotomayor, and the other kids get on different buses and they take them to the other schools that are also part of the fee-based busing program. If we split the program at middle school, we do essentially the same thing. So there would be fee-based busing allowed to both sites if it gets split. Thank you for the question.
Okay, the next question comes from the line of Megan Stever. Go ahead, please.
Yep, I have a couple questions. And the first is in terms of the high school options. And my experience is coming from a civil engineering perspective, and I've worked in transportation research in the area of safety. And the first question I have is in terms of accessibility, where the area west of Sertoma Avenue, over in the Discovery area south of 12th Street, has no access to a fixed bus route and no access to paratransit services. So for students without a car, this option has them walking a mile or more to Roosevelt to catch a bus or paratransit service to Jefferson. Okay, the second comment I have is in terms of safety, and I did send in some charts with some areas because I am an engineer and because I did take the time to identify the most dangerous intersections in Sioux Falls, which is 41st and Louise and 41st and I-29. And there's a substantial population west of Western Avenue and east of I-29, and they all have to go on that dangerous corridor. The number one cause of death in teens, motor vehicle crashes. Now, Kiwanis Avenue has half the traffic, so you could essentially divert them to Jefferson, which is equal distance for drive time. In addition, besides the kids between 12th and 41st Street, between I-29 and Western Avenue, you've got the kids east of Louise Avenue and west of Western Avenue and south of 41st Street. Those kids also have access through 49th Street to Kiwanis Avenue to that safer route. You know, and we can keep going farther south, but east of I-29. So, you know, essentially, you've got kids possibly without cars that are now walking a mile to 2 miles to the closest bus route to Jefferson. And you have the kids east of I-29 going down this most dangerous corridor in the city. And based on those population density maps, I think that's worth looking at. And I think it's something that needs to be looked at. What is the population in those areas, and what does it do for the population at Jefferson and Roosevelt? And I believe based on that data, and then in keeping Cherry Lake at Jefferson, you've got a balanced population between the two. I'm very concerned with the danger of sending those kids down 41st Street. It's a liability that not just the school district has to accept, but every parent in this district who pays taxes. And fatal crashes are the #1 cause of death for teens. So those are my comments in regard to the high school options.
We are in receipt of the information you sent in. I will make sure that that information gets to the Board of Education as well.
Okay, I would appreciate that, and I would like, you know, to know those populations. And I did send in the graphs, and I realized I made an error in looking at it because that population east of Louise, south of 41st, that also definitely has that access to that traffic route on Kiwanis, which is half the traffic. And, you know, in my research experience, traffic is always directly correlated to crashes. So you got a route that's a main corridor like 41st, you are always going to have more crashes. And it's always going to be less safe
than, say, Kiwanis Avenue to Madison to Jefferson. So I can send that in after the call, and I appreciate it.
We'll certainly give that a look. Thank you.
Tess Hendrick, has the next question or comment.
Hi, yeah, we live just west of 12th and Ellis, a little pocket that would be sent to McGovern in option B. When you compare the annual state accountability report card that takes into account testing and attendance, McGovern ranks 46 compared to Memorial's 69 score. So why should parents feel confident and comfortable about sending their children to McGovern with such a discrepancy in scores? And do you worry parents will send their children elsewhere and take their children out of the district entirely with option B?
Yeah. Well, number one, I don't know that that's necessarily a boundary question, but let me address it a little bit. One of the things that we're looking at as we look at the boundaries is looking at the demographics that go into each one of the schools as well. And when you line up the predictors of academic success, very high in that predictive arena is socioeconomic status. So as you change socioeconomic status, I believe you would change the outcomes of any school, quite frankly. So I don't know if the issue you're talking would address that or not, but I would tell you from a teaching standpoint, our teachers who teach at McGovern are from the same pool as teachers who teach in any other middle school in the district, and teachers who teach at McGovern are every bit the quality of teachers who teach in any other school in the district. So I think the biggest thing that we're trying to do is to make sense of the boundaries from a citywide perspective, both from a number of students, a distribution of our population, but also a distribution of our demographic. And I think as our demographic changes in each of our schools, the outcomes of those schools will change.
Roland Tagler has the next question or comment. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hello. We live just east of Sertoma, and we live between 22nd and 26th Street. And I guess my question would be, my daughter will be an 8th grader at Memorial when the boundary changes would go in effect. And I believe, last I heard anyway, one of the options was if you lived east of Sertoma, you would go to Edison. And I guess I was just wondering if that is still an option on the table, since we literally live like 2 blocks from Memorial where she can walk to school right now. That's, I guess, my main question right now.
Yeah, not knowing exactly where you live, I would say that's a possibility, and that would be an option that we do still have on the table. Mr. Morrison addressed that a little bit earlier on the question that came in.
Yeah.
Does that address your question?
I guess I wasn't for sure. I've seen some of the options that were out there, and I guess we live like right next to that Church of the Gate on West 26th Street, if that helps for any reference.
Yeah.
And so my daughter basically is like 3 blocks from Memorial, but I believe out of the 3 options for school boundaries, one of them was if you lived east of Sertoma, you would go to Edison. But I believe if I read the other 2 options right, she would get to stay at Memorial Middle School for her 8th grade year, I guess. Is that right? And I was trying to listen too, so if I missed something, I apologize if I'm asking a duplicate question.
No, that's okay, because I think your point's well taken. Even though I don't specifically understand it, I get the gist of it. And really, I think something we need to consider is, where does that line get drawn? does 22nd Street make sense? And I think that's the bigger question. And I can't answer that yes or no tonight, but it seems as though what you're saying is my daughter can walk 3 blocks and go to this middle school, or she gets moved to another middle school. So let me have Doug Morrison address that and see if we can help you out a little bit here.
Yeah, that's basically the gist of my question.
Yeah, good evening, and thanks for your question. I don't believe there's a current walk area to Memorial that we're moving. So we are moving, in one option, we're moving JFK, and in another option, we're moving the non-bus portion of Oscar House. So I'd have to know specifically, but there, have you come across on the website essentially the website where you can go and put your specific address in and then look at where you fall under each option?
I did not know that was there. I guess
there's a tool.
Kind of seeing some different proposals.
Yeah, there's a tool out there, sir, where you can put your specific address in, and it'll tell you under option A or B for either high school or middle school where you would be scheduled to go under each. And if you can't find it, send a note in through Let's Talk and say that you called in tonight, and it'll find its way to me, and I will give you a call back, sir, and make sure that we can that you understand exactly what school you're slated to go to.
Okay, no, that sounds really good.
Okay.
How many options are on the table roughly for the West Siders, like with the middle school / high school? Is it still kind of 3 for middle school, 3 for high school, roughly?
No, two for middle school that we're taking input on, and 2 for high school.
Okay.
And,
okay. I think one of the options I seen was the one, and it must have been taken away now. Then that I was kind of asking a question on that.
Yeah. If you can't find that tool, let me know. Send it in through Let's Talk, and I'll give you a call and we'll walk through it.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
And there is one last question in queue from Susan Hill. Go ahead, Susan.
Yes, I know that you, in the past with open enrollment, have had certain numbers you allow at each school.
Susan, did you call once tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
When will you announce the allowing of open enrollment at the different schools? Like, when will we know which schools are going to be open for open enrollment and how many at each school?
I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Nold. I'm first going to say that it'll be a while for that yet. The boundaries in the open enrollment, while they're certainly entangled in trying to determine the answer to both questions, they're really different issues. And the boundaries, what we're trying to do is make sense of for the city long term, and the open enrollment is more a matter of what the building capacity is at any particular time to determine what the open enrollment is. The addition of a 4th high school and the addition of a 6th middle school over time will give us more open enrollment options than we currently have. But there'll need to be some dust settling before I know that answer specifically. You see if Dr. Nold can help answer your question.
Thank you for that question. The answer to that is December 1st of every year, we begin the open enrollment process for the next year, and we're never able to tell an individual whether it be open or closed until that point in time. At that point in time, we run the numbers for every building, and we compare that to what the school board has established for maximum capacity numbers for each of those buildings. When I say maximum capacity, I say that in the reference of open enrollment. So if the maximum at that school is set at 1,900, whatever it is set at, we would run the enrollment projected for that next school year and then respond back whether it is available for open enrollment or not. And so we're never able to really say that until after that December 1st, where we pull the numbers and look at it and then respond to every open enrollment application. Those numbers will be established for the high school and then for the middle school and then for each one of those elementary schools. So December 1st of every year is when it opens up, and it will be open up every December 1st and then we run the numbers to compare.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Dr. Nold. Diane, we have time for one more question tonight.
Okay, great. We do have one question from Andrew Tetzlaff. Go ahead, please.
Hi, thanks. My question is, Jefferson High School is being built in an area where there's going to be more housing development. The boundaries appear to be based on keeping similar enrollments between the high schools, and it appears that the boundary lines in the future will have to be redrawn, assuming there's going to be more development in that area. So I guess my question is, why can't they be drawn according to future enrollment? Relating back to a previous caller, seems like it's going between demographics and numbers versus location. I'm south of 26th Street, and the Roosevelt-Jefferson line is very important to me. You know, we're 3 blocks or so from Roosevelt High School, and we may not be able to go there. And obviously, it might be 6 to 7 blocks. I don't really know. But that being said, it just seems like it's not really location. It seems like it's what's good for the district numbers versus what's good for the location of the people and where they live. And I'm very interested in why Jefferson High School has to have a similar enrollment to the other 3 high schools.
Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, your question's a good one, and it doesn't matter if it's 3 blocks or 9 blocks. This is important to you, and I understand that. So your point is well taken. I think a couple of things on the boundaries. Number one, if we had not passed a bond issue and we still had the dilemma we have with the population we have, we were going to have to redo boundaries. Boundaries are not static, but when they get set, they're generally set for a while. And I think, Andrew, that your presupposition that we are drawing boundaries for our current population is accurate, but we do have a view of what the future looks like as we have involved the city in trying to figure out where our areas will grow. And you're right, that area in the northwest part of the city is one that our city hopes will grow, and we certainly share that hope with our city. If over time that we overburden Jefferson High School, we would necessarily have to move the boundaries again. So that is something that, as I mentioned, is not static. That will be a dynamic situation. And as our community fills in, we'll have to change those. But in the meantime, from a staffing perspective, from an equity perspective, those decisions do need to be made, and they're not personal. When you say they're best for the district, I would say you're accurate, but honestly, what's best for the district is what's best for the citizens of the district, and that's what we're trying to do is do what's best for the citizens of the district. We know that there are individual circumstances where somebody might shake their head and roll their eyes and say this makes no sense. But we don't have the luxury of looking at just what it means for my own family. I have to look at what it means for 25,000 students and many thousands of families. So we'll do our best to keep all of those individual situations in mind while we make a collective decision. But I want you to know, as somebody who moved 2 of his own kids when they were in high school, I understand that's not an easy thing to do. I truly understand that. With that, we have gone just over. I thank you all for the depth of your questions, the civility that you showed in this process. We will do this again Saturday morning at 10 a.m. We hope that if you didn't have a chance to get your question asked tonight, you will call in Saturday and we will start this process again. Again, thank you all and have a great week.
This concludes